Here.
Looking this way. My name is Seth Davin, and I play guitar and I sing in American Scarecrows.
My name is Matthew Broadbent. I play bass.
My name is Alan Meyer, and I play drums in American Scarecrows.
My name is Kevin Mayer. I played guitar, mostly acoustic, and wrote songs and sang in the band American Scarecrows.
Matthew, Alan, and I had been playing in a band for a little bit prior to American Scarecrows.
We did a couple label showcases. We ended up doing a trip over to Iraq to play for our troops, and that was the first time that I got to meet Alan. It was a great time, and then we got back from that trip, and that band kind of dispersed.
After Dropping Daylight ended, I was projectless for a while, and Kevin, I at least as far as I remember Kevin approaching me and being like, we write songs together, we play songs together, our voices sound really well together, we should start a band together. And it's like, well, yeah, we should do that.
From my perspective, I was doing acoustic folk type stuff, kind of by myself. And then I got introduced to, actually Seth and I went to high school together. Like, we didn't really talk in high school. And then I got introduced to Seth by a mutual friend. And then we started writing songs together.
Once we kind of had a handful of songs that we thought worked well together, it was just like a no-brainer to bring in Matthew and Alan, because they know how to play. They're great players, and they know how to play in a band. And yeah.
I remember one night they came to me and they wanted to go get some beers, and they sat down and told me that they had a band name and they'd been writing songs and they want me to play drums. And I said, absolutely.
I mean, I would be lying if I didn't say the Wallflowers. I mean, you can kind of hear it a lot in there. I was listening to a lot of Bright Eyes at the time. Seth had just introduced me to Wilco. And I'm trying to think of anything else that I was listening to that really inspired it. But those are the two main ones, I think, or three main ones.
There's a couple songs on the record that I had written before Kevin and I started writing and playing together. Same with him. I think that once we started, even before the band was an actual thing and an idea that we were going to be doing, I think that there was a direction. I think that I was really feeding off of Kevin's creative energy, and he was pushing me as a writer, and I was really enjoying all the stuff that he was doing, and he writes so much that is kind of intimidating. We're very different writers in that Kevin is very prolific in that he just writes all the time, and he just churns out songs so at just an incredible speed. And I've always been I've been a little bit of a slower writer. But I think that once we kind of had a vibe going, I think that I really do think that Kevin was the one that was pushing me. It was just an inspiring time for me to be able to kind of feed off of his creative energy and his encouragement.
I've always been influenced by Max Weinberg, and I think with this record especially, I was trying to play for the songs and let the songwriting that Seth and Kevin were doing stay as the focus. And one of my favorite things was during this time was learning to play along with Matt a lot better. And so he and I kind of were feeding off of each other on parts and how things could flow, and then how they could fit with what Seth and Kevin were doing.
Growing up, I was really big into the punk rock scene. Matt Freeman from Rancid, Roger from Less Than Jake, but all the way to like your Victor Wootens, your Jaco Pastoriuses. I really liked busy, frantic, difficult bass parts. In every other project I've ever been in, I was trying to do as much as possible on the bass. And this was the first project that I had been a part of that style of bass playing didn't work at all. So it was initially a pretty big challenge for me to really step back, and it forced me to learn when to play for the song versus when to play for myself.
I know Seth and Kevin were writing songs together, and we got together in Kevin's basement a couple times, and I felt like the songs really came together quickly.
I think we worked on at least 1 or 2 songs that day alone, and it just kind of clicked from there. And that was in November of 2010. Come January of 2011, we were already in the studio working on our album.
Typically the creative process, well, it depended because this was our first record together, so some of the songs came from like I'd written, a year or 2 years before. The songs that Seth and I wrote together basically involved like a lot of Red Dog beer and writing on like anything we get our hands on, like paper plates and shit like that. We started forming the songs. I think I almost don't even want to say it was like a creative process. It was like just everything. Once Alan and Matt started playing with us, it's like everything just made sense. It didn't even really feel like a process. It's just like everybody already knew what to play almost. It was weird.
I feel like there were 3 different stages with this first record. The first being Kevin and I really becoming friends, and then that developing into like a really fun like writing partner kind of situation to be in, and us kind of putting together this collection of songs that work well together, songs that he sings, songs that I sing, songs that we sing together. So that was one, subset. And then the second was getting Matthew and Alan on board and them bringing everything that they brought to the table with just a super strong rhythm section and helping with some of the pre-production and trimming songs down a little bit and kind of just trimming the fat a bit. And then once we felt good there, it really was getting into the studio with Colt and having someone that knows, that's such a competent engineer and mixer, to be able to add his flavor to things and help out in the studio, which was, it really helped out a lot to have a friend that, we had access to a top-of-the-line studio for little to no money, and that really did make a massive difference in being able to, it never felt like we were in a hurry to do this record. We really were able to have as much time to get things right.
I think that my favorite song I did was Naked in the Gallery. Just because at the time I didn't feel like I had a lot of more whimsical sounding songs on the record. I had like Feeling Alright and Passenger Seat, and that was kind of more, I think, it felt like more songwritery to me. which is why I really enjoyed that song. My favorite song that Seth did on the record is hands down Depending on the Weather. I just think that, like, when it goes to that E minor and the drums come in, the bass come in, it just rips. I just love that song.
I remember the first time we played Wild Hearts together. That became a favorite of mine because it just had an energy about it from the start. When we first started playing it, it just felt really good. Seth and Kevin were both singing on the song. The song itself became one of my favorites because of the feeling that I got when we first played it.
I think In the Name of the Best Within Us is probably one of the songs that I'm most proud of playing on throughout my entire career. I just feel that there's just so much emotion in that song, especially when everything comes in and it's just so driving, and especially when it goes into the gang vocals at the end. That really leaned into like my punk rock background, and I just kind of felt that with everything in my body, playing it live, recording everything. So that's probably one of my favorites.
I think that my favorite song on the record is My Way Home. I don't necessarily think it's the best song on the record, but I think that it's my favorite song on the record of mine. I think that song still feels that song feels the closest to me to what Scarecrows still is today. And my favorite Kevin song on the record, honestly, I think is Naked in the Gallery, which is funny because at the time I was really, in my opinion, at the time that we were releasing the record or we were sequencing the record, I was kind of pushing for that song to not be on the record. And I'm glad that Kevin gave me as much pushback as he did, because I think that at the time I didn't really understand the song, and we all fear what we don't understand. But now, listening through, when I go back and listen through that record, I think that Naked in the Gallery is a really special moment in Kevin's writing, because Kevin does not write very often in the abstract. And when he does write in the abstract lyrically, I just think that it's like so poetic and beautiful, and I still don't entirely know what that song is about, but I have a kind of there's a vague picture in my head that he's painting, and yeah, I fucking love that song. Naked in the Gallery. It's just one of Kevin's, like, when he's writing in the abstract, I just don't get it. My least favorite song of mine is easily Jesus on the TV. It just feels tired.
I think one of my least favorite songs on the record is Jesus on the TV. For me at the time, playing that kind of swing pattern was not my strongest suit as a drummer. Over the years, I've focused more on practicing that, but at the time, I feel like when I listen to the recording, there's many things that I would definitely want to change or play differently now.
It's hard because I don't really have a least favorite song. I think in every project that I've ever done, there's always been songs that I've skipped when I've gone back and listened to it again. And this album is one of the first times that I never skipped a song. I guess I would probably have to go with the pack here and honestly say maybe Jesus on the TV. Just because I feel that from a songwriting standpoint, it wasn't as mature, it wasn't as in sync with the rest of the album. And that's not to say that it's not a good song, because I do still think it's a good song, and I love playing that chorus and the gang vocals and everything like that. But probably That would probably have to be my least favorite of them.
One of my least favorite songs on the record has to be Cannon Canyon, because it's a fucking terrible song. And that, like, there isn't really much more to expound upon other than that its structure, the melody, the lyrics. It's just all together. It's like a 14-year-old kid wrote it.
My least favorite song, my least favorite Kevin song on the record, I suppose. Honestly, by default, I think it has to be Black and Tan. I actually really love Black and Tan. I think that it's a ripper of a tune. It's really fun to play live, and it's just... But comparatively to the rest of the stuff that Kevin was doing on the record, it's definitely the bottom tier of the, you know, on the album.
I would say doing my bass lines. That day was memorable. First song that I did, I was super excited for, was Depending on the Weather. I came in and the bass line that you hear on that song is literally the first take that I did on the entire album, and that was the only take that I did of that song. Start to finish, there were no punches on that. I had been practicing that one so much, and I was so excited to show the guys what I had done. And I just remember getting done playing that and Seth being like, "Yeah, boy!" like giving out this big scream or something like that. And they were just all stoked on it. And I remember Colt looking at me going like, "Okay, well, what's next?" And we just proceeded to go through. I did 16 songs in I think, 3.5 hours? And most of them were a single take. I don't think I did many punches at all. If I did, maybe one or two. So that's something that kind of stood out to me, is how quickly I was able to get through and do those songs. Because I'd never recorded that quickly before.
Really, like a big standout for me is Kevin recording in a legitimate A-list studio for the first time. Having been friends for a couple of years at this point, and you know, our friendship blossoming and me believing so much in his talent and his songs, I think seeing him in a big live room and recording vocals and hearing how good his voice sounds recorded was just a really special moment for me.
My favorite memory happened at the beginning of the record when Alan was tracking drums, and we didn't see it, but somehow he had a water bottle full of vodka in the drum room, and like we hadn't been paying attention, and all of a sudden he was just like slamming on the drums, and I remember he was doing like stick flips like while recording, and I just remember Colt, who was the engineer and producer on the record, leaned in and said, "You know, that's not really coming through on the audio." And I just remember the look on his face, like.
I have a lot of good memories from the recording process. One that really stands out was just kind of, there was a night, it was just Colt and I in the studio, and we were recording Cannon Canyon. And I remember it was a fun night. We had a couple drinks and we decided that we were gonna kind of play around with the sound of the drums a bit. And so we started messing around with the sounds of the kick drum. And we did many takes of that song because we wanted to make sure we got the feel right for it. And that felt like a fun night to me because we were trying different sounds and we weren't just kind of going through the standard motions of recording at that moment.
Once again, with Depending on the Weather, we were tracking drums at the time, and we had a whole week in the studio to do drums, and that was the only time that we were in the studio for a full week. Otherwise it was, you know, a weekend date here or there. But I remember Seth was just futzing around on the guitar, and he played the the starting guitar line of Depending on the Weather, and I heard that and I go, what is that? Well, it's just this, it's something I've been working on. I'm like, do you have stuff written for that? And so he played, he's like, yeah, I got the intro, I got the first verse, and I got the chorus. But that's really it. I'm like, dude, you have to finish the song. No, but I don't have a second chorus written. So sing the first one again. Write the fucking song. Because this is awesome. Let's do that. And I think Seth went back that night, and then the next day came into the studio and was like, all right, here's the song, and we kind of worked on it in the studio. Alan went in and cut the drums for it. So that was the last song to come together on the album. Am I remembering that accurately? I'm pretty sure that's how it went down.
I think that you're right, actually.
Yeah.
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 In the last 10 years, I imagined us, I always hoped that we would continue playing as a band on whatever level that was. Whether we were making a lot of money doing it or just playing because we enjoyed doing it and love playing together. And so I did imagine this, and I always hoped that this is what we would still be doing.
Is this where I imagined myself 10 years ago? Most assuredly not. I mean, no. That's such a complicated question. I think that... I think that I imagine I'd be playing music more than I do, but I'm still writing. And I definitely didn't see myself having any kind of job, which I do. But it's life.
One of my favorite quotes that's really rung true and really meant a lot to me over this past couple years has been one from Steve Jobs, where he said, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking back. You can only hope that moving forward, they somehow line up. So 10 years ago, I would have loved to have seen us take over the world. I would have loved to have been on like every tour and playing arenas and stuff like that. But in retrospect, I wouldn't change a thing. I'm really happy with how things played out, and I think everything played out the way that it did for a reason, and it allowed us to become the people that we are. I think it allowed us to become the band that we are. I think it allowed us to write the songs that we've written. And if that would have played out differently, we wouldn't be where we are now. So I'm grateful for that. From Keep Your Devils Around to Yesteryear, those are two projects that I'm absolutely the most proud of anything that I've ever done in my career. In many respects, it's kind of rare that you can look back on stuff that you did a decade ago or even further and not be somewhat embarrassed by it or, oh man, yeah, I wish we would have done this better. We would have slowed this down. We could have mixed this differently. But with these records, and especially with Keep Your Devils Around, man, there's really not much I would change. And to this day, I can still press play and listen to it start to finish and kind of remember where we were at that time. And it just takes me back, but in the best way possible.
Like, I'm still like involved in like a back seat because Seth and I still write a shit ton together like all the time. So it's been awesome. I mean, I get to see my best friend do what he loves to do, and honestly, like seeing the Scarecrows as a three-piece was like badass because it's like three dudes and it's so loud. And I remember when I came back, I was like always in the front row. Like I love the music. So yeah, it's been fantastic.
Is this where I imagined myself 10 years ago? I don't know. I think I'm 33 now. when I was 23, I don't think that I was thinking about myself 10 years from then. There is a special, specific naivety that comes along with being born in the burbs, white, and 23. I don't know. Like, we were just drinking a lot of beer. Kevin and I were working at the same warehouse at the time. We both ended up getting laid off from that job because we were taking off too much time to go and tour with Cracker and Camper Van Beethoven. It was totally justified for us to get laid off from that job. But listening back to the album, I feel very proud of it. I think that we did as best of a job as we could have at the time. And this record really does serve as like a solid foundation for the band that's still playing today. And even though Kevin's not playing live with the band or isn't in the band anymore, he's still very much a part of my writing process still. Kevin has made significant lyrical contributions on Yesteryear, and whatever is to come, he will definitely be involved with it behind the scenes. And being able to still be playing with Matthew and Alan is just, it's hard keeping a band together, and we've all gone through some pretty big ups and downs with each other, but we're still here making music with each other, and that fucking rocks to me.